The NBA regular season is almost over. In fact, for most teams, there are around 10 games left in the season for most teams in the NBA. And of course, with that comes MVP talk. Now, I'm sure you've seen or heard there's everyone that's got a guy: Wemby, Luka, Shea, Jokic, even guys like Cade Cunningham for the Pistons and Jaylen Brown for the Boston Celtics. And of course, my favorite player, who I think the best player in the NBA, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. But I decided to take a moment to the best of my ability, take out the bias, and really look at 6 categories, rank each of these players, and then pick an unbiased MVP for the season. Hello, my name is Nathan, and this is Thunder Up Talk. Thank you so much for watching this video. And I'm just ready to get started. So the 6 categories that I just kind of selected were raw stats, defense, winning, efficiency, advanced stats, and narrative. And I basically, I just kept it to the top 4 in my opinion. The top 4 are Wemby, Jokic, Luka, and Shea. Brown has been incredible with the Celtics. He's really had a really good year. But the stats and the fact that they're the 2 seed in the West or in the East, I just don't think he beats those other 4 guys that are in the top 4. And then Cade, he's been awesome too. But again, you look at his stats, it is the East. And the fact that he just won't qualify, I left him out as well. So I ranked all of these guys in each of these categories. Shea, Wemby, Jokic, and Luka. With raw stats, to me, it was pretty obvious Joker should get that. The guy's averaging a triple-double. I think he just had like 19 assists the other night. It's really hard to compete with his raw stats. And Luka was second. He has been incredible. When you look at his points, rebounds, and assists, he has been phenomenal. So I'll just keep it at that. I won't tell the ranking for each group, but just kind of how I got there. For defense, this one was very simple. Wemby is probably the best defender in the entire NBA. He totally changes things. He changes how teams attack the rim. He makes guys second guess themselves when they're shooting threes, even when he's 5 feet away from them, just because he's got that long, he can just stretch it out and really contest anything. So Wemby is by far number 1 in that category. With the other 2 guys, I think it's pretty obvious that Shea would be 2 with defense. Now winning, this one's very simple. Again, I really wanted to try and keep things as simple and as unbiased as possible when it came to most of these categories. Winning, Shea, he's got the best winning percentage, the most wins in the league right now. It could get a little interesting with Wemby if they continue winning. They have one of the easier, I think the 20th ranked schedule as far as, so it's very easy for the regular season versus the Thunder, who have, I think, the second hardest remaining schedule. So that could flip-flop. But even if it did, I don't think it would change the outcome of the MVP. And then, of course, we have efficiency. This was really interesting. And when I think of efficiency, I think of obviously how well you shoot the ball and how well you take care of the ball. Because if you don't turn the ball over, that is creating more possessions for your team and is extremely valuable. I will go ahead and go through all 4 on this one. So I put Shea at number 1 because he's shooting 56% from the field, which is incredible for a guard. On top of the fact that he's only averaging 2.2 turnovers per game. So that's why he beat Jokic. Jokic is shooting 1% better, but he's also committing about a full turnover more per game. And with Shea being a guard, I just find that super impressive. So the efficiency ranking goes Shea, Jokic, Wemby, and Luka. Luka is not shooting great. He turns the ball over like crazy. It is by far the least efficient player in this group. And then advanced stats were interesting, but again, it was really close between Jokic and Shea, but Jokic was number one, Shea was two, Wemby three, especially with some of those defensive advanced stats, and then Luka was last there. And then lastly is narrative. So narrative is interesting, right? Because if you listen, this is going to be my narrative. So people may not agree. All the national media they're gonna want to talk about the Lakers, and I get it. There's millions and millions and millions of people that want to hear about the Lakers. LA is a huge market, but they've been relatively healthy. Luka has LeBron. He's got Austin Reeves. There really hasn't been a ton of adversity. So he was last in the narrative story. Jokic was three, and this one was pretty tough to me because the Denver Nuggets have been pretty unhealthy throughout the season, but they've kind of come back, and they're still just in that four spot. So it was hard for me to bump him up. If he had drug that team to the 2 seed, I think the narrative could have been much more in his favor on this list. But I just don't see it. And then Wemby, of course, everyone wants to talk about Wemby. And I do think it's impressive that he's led this young Spurs team to the 2 seed in the West and possibly to the 1st seed. And if that were the case, I would consider switching. If they jumped the Thunder, I would consider moving him up in this category as well. And of course, that leaves Shea. So this probably sounds like a homer take, but just give me a second. So the one thing that frustrates me the most about just Shea talk in general, about Thunder talk, how Shea's where he's at in the MVP ladder, is the fact that the Oklahoma City Thunder, I know they're deep, but you have to watch games to know to really understand how injured this team has been. So, they have been the second most injured team in the NBA this year. So there's only one other team in the NBA that has been this injured or more injured than the Oklahoma City Thunder. And Shea has led this team despite all of these injuries to the 1 seed. Also missing is his second best player on the team. And so that's the thing. Shea hasn't just been playing without, number 10 guy on the bench and number 11 guy on the team. iHeart's been out. Obviously J-Dub. Chat has been in and out, but he's been pretty consistent this year. Caruso, Isaiah Joe, like all these guys that have been injured throughout the entire season, and no matter who they plug in, Shea is just kind of dragging this team to the number 1 seed. And I think that is super impressive and isn't talked about nearly enough. So, with all of that said, I kind of calculated scores, and it wasn't even close at number 4. I mean, Luka has been great in the month of March, but he had by far the lowest score of 16 in my very important and well thought out formula for MVP. So he had 16 points and was by far the lowest. Things like efficiency, the defense, even the advanced stats just were not in his favor here. And I get it. He's a Laker. People are going to push it, but I don't think he deserves to be higher than 4th in the MVP voting. I really don't. Now, 2nd and 3rd were tied, and this was really interesting. So at 2 and 3 were Joker and Wemby, and they both had 21 points. So it was a tie. I think I would lean a little bit toward Wemby just because of the winning. Winning is always going to be the scale that kind of makes me go, okay, this guy gets it over the other. When it has to come down to something super, super small. And even saying that, 100% no. Just because, like I said, Jokic is averaging a triple double, and there's something really special about that. But they're the 4 seed, and they haven't been playing great lately. And winning basketball games matters when you're talking about earning the MVP. So, and then of course, first place is Shea. He had 26 points. And the thing about Shea is that even in some of these categories where he may not have been one, like in defense or advanced stats, he was never really 3 or 4, other than raw stats. And that's because of the assists and rebounds. I gave it to Luka and Jokic. But everything else, things that matter, efficiency, winning, defense, he was in the top 2. So to me, Shea is by far the obvious choice for MVP. Even with whatever bias I have, I think it's a pretty easy conclusion. MVP isn't just about one thing, and that's my whole point about doing this entire video. I'll see things like, well, does Luka or Shea or Jokic play defense like Wemby? No. Shea's not nearly as good, but he's better than the other two. Does anyone else average a triple-double like Jokic? No, but Wemby and Shea play better defense, and they have more wins. Luka has more wins. Luka has had an incredible March. Well, that's true, but Shea has also had 133 straight games of 20 or more points. That matters. That's part of the narrative. I didn't even talk about that, but that's part of the narrative in my opinion. So when it's all said and done, Shea has the best combination of all of these MVP points, and it's really not very close. And I know, being in Oklahoma, a lot of fans, I think it's just pure jealousy that we have this team in Oklahoma, period, that we have this incredible young team that we just keep adding pieces to, like Jared McCain. We keep getting better. And this is just going to happen, When people are comparing themselves, I've noticed here lately, Wemby said that he wanted to be MVP. One of his reasons was because they won a lot of games against the Thunder. Everyone is constantly comparing themselves, Jaylen Brown or Luka, to what Shea's doing, even when the numbers don't match the narrative that the media is putting out. I'll give one quick example about Luka. So Luka, the big thing about Shea, free throw merchant this, free throw merchant that. I argue he's a field goal merchant. He leads the NBA in made field goals per game, so made field goals per game. Luka leads the league in free throw attempts per game, and it's not even close. Luka also leads the league in field goal attempts per game. So, seeing some of this stuff, the narratives, some of these people, I feel like on ESPN, they just have to come up with something to talk about, and I get that. The Thunder are kind of boring, methodical, consistent, but it is what it is, and I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to be back-to-back MVP. So that's all I've got for today. Thank you for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. Have a wonderful day. Bye.